The hum rises before anyone speaks, thin as a wire between teeth, and the dishes stare like blind moons. The narrator watches Evelyn Hart pace the fence, and Evelyn said, "If Elena vanished here, I will not leave empty-handed." Priya Shah said, "Disarray eats brave people," and her recorder clicks like a nervous insect. Sodium light drains the color from warning signs while sand skates across concrete. Silas Reed said, 10 minutes is all I can steal," and his badge flashes dull brass. Evelyn's goal is simple and sharp. She wants proof that the array bent minds. The wind tastes metallic, like a storm that forgot rain, and the hum presses behind the ears. A terminal flickers inside, and hope stirs with the dust. The padlock complains as Silas lifts the chain. The gate yawns. The hum drops, and a laugh echoes below, thin and wrong, and the narrator wonders who is already waiting. The printer chatters like teeth, while the narrator watches Evelyn skim fresh logs. Evelyn said, "These spikes match the night. Elena called me for help." Priya Shah said, "You never told me about that call." Keys tick, quick and guilty, and the CRT paints green on Evelyn's hands. The room smells of hot dust and old tape, and fear tastes dry. Evelyn said, "I missed it, and I will not miss again." A timestamp repeats at odd intervals, like a heartbeat trying to speak. Silas Reed said, "Someone's coming. My shift ends in 5. The hum shifts lower, as if the building is listening. The printer spits a final line that mentions a sublevel door. The narrator feels the air lean toward the stairwell, and the lights think about dimming. Concrete breathes cold as the narrator follows them to the hatch. Evelyn said, "Sublevel equals storage or secrets," and her voice stays flat to hide the tremor. Priya Shah said, "Tell me when we turn back." The stairwell smells like wet metal, and each step answers with a small groan. Silas Reed said officially, "This doesn't exist," and he glances at the camera dome with its dead red eye. The hum grows rounder, like a hand on a drum skin. Evelyn said, "Elena hated enclosed spaces, and guilt moves across her face like shade. A draft licks their ankles from below, colder than the night outside. The wheel on the hatch squeals like a struck animal. The narrator grips the rail as the door loosens, and darkness waits with a grin you cannot see. The narrator feels the hum thinning into a shape that almost speaks. Evelyn said, "Infrasound can bend mood and choice," and her fingers map the railing's pits. Priya Shah said, "Or it can hide fear until it cracks." A distant laugh floats up from the dark like a ribbon cut loose. Silas Reed said, "Air vents," but his voice forgets its swagger at the edges. The flashlight cone quivers on the concrete, and dust glitters like frost. Evelyn said, "Elena recorded a tone that made her hands shake. The steps tighten, tighter still, and the wind smells old." The hatch below breathes out a colder draft, patient and mean. Priya said, "If there's a recording, we bring it back." The narrator hears a second set of steps that no one owns, and nobody decides to mention it. The basement lab wakes like an animal that pretends to sleep. The narrator watches Evelyn lift a cracked notebook marked with Elena's name, and her breath slows as if the paper might break. Priya Shah said, non-audible resonance, human trials, redactions, and each word adds weight to the table. Silas Reed said, "This is unauthorized and gone in minutes." The air tastes of acetate and old glue, and a strip light buzzes like a fly. Evelyn said, "She proved fear could be tuned," and the room leans closer. A tape deck blinks a lone red eye, patient as a metronome. Priya said, "Someone erased conclusions," and the hum dips, coy and cruel. A door above slams itself shut, as if nudged by a will. The narrator hears a soft laugh near the speaker cone, and the tape clicks to record. Alarms bite the quiet as doors thump shut in the annex. The The narrator feels the floor hum like a warning wire under skin. Evelyn Hart said, "They are wiping the backups now." Priya Shah said, "Then we move, or we lose everything." The hall lights smear to red and back to white, slow as a heartbeat with a skip. Silas Reed said, "I gave you time, not a war." Evelyn's fear flashes, then hardens into aim. Noah Clark waits by the service lift and will not meet her eyes. Evelyn said, "You brought them, didn't you?" Noah said, "I brought a way out." Footsteps stack above, crisp and closing. A printer down the corridor coughs a new location tag, and the chase points to the substation. Rain needles the quad awning, and the narrator feels the breath of calm pretend to hold. Evelyn Hart said, "He knew the codes," and her hands shake once before she pockets them. Priya Shah said, "Anger keeps you upright, but it steals your aim." Noah Clark said, "I can still fix this." And he leans into the shadow where the cameras fail. The world smells like wet stone and copper, and strings of water glint under the lights. Evelyn said, "Fix means risk, and the word tastes bitter." Priya said, "Trust costs more than we carry tonight." A fountain light flickers in a pattern like the spike they saw, soft and repeating. The narrator notes the rhythm, a clue hiding in the rain. Marble scatters sound as the narrator enters the library atrium and finds Dr. Marcus Vale waiting like a verdict. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Curiosity without limits becomes harm." Evelyn Hart said, "Harm already happened." Security lights hold him in a cool crown, and his voice carries as if the room obeys. Priya Shah said, "You signed human trials." Vale said, "I signed progress, and progress resists panic." His calm presses down like a hand on glass. Noah Clark lowers his eyes, and the guilt reads clear. Vale said, "Return what you stole, and I will forget tonight." The hum seems to lean toward him, trained and faithful. The narrator wonders what the price of refusal will be. The stairwell holds a hush that belongs to older secrets. Iris Cade steps from the half-light, and the narrator feels the act slow to listen. Iris Cade said, "Your copy is a map, not a key." Evelyn Hart said, "You watched Elena run." Iris said, "I told her to run." The bulb hums in a thin line, and the air smells like wet concrete and dust. Priya Shah said, "Why help now?" Iris said, "Because he believes you will fold." She sets a coin on the rail, scratched with the Helios crest. Evelyn said, "Pass by is nothing if we fail tonight." Iris said, "Then learn the vault song or drown in it." The warning lands where fear already waits. Rain eases to a hiss as the narrator follows them to the annex door that breathes cold air. Evelyn Hart said, "Vault below the auditorium, that is where it ends." Priya Shah said, "Or where it starts again." Iris Cade said, "You will need a voice the system trusts." Noah Clark said, "I know the pattern, and I owe you a door." The walk becomes a run, and the lights smear into wet bands. Evelyn's fear rides with her, but resolve climbs higher. She said, "We take it public, even if we burn." Priya said, "Then we burn bright." The keypad waits under a weak lamp, and the night holds its breath for Act 3. The annex breathes quiet, almost kind, as the generator settles to a soft purr. The narrator notes the piece feels staged, like velvet over glass. A junior tech unlocks a side lab and offers a smile that arrives late. Evelyn Hart said, "Appreciate the help." The tech says, "Happy to serve," and looks at Noah Clark for a beat too long. Priya Shah said, "Why is this room still powered?" The fluorescents hum in a thin ribbon, steady yet nervous. Noah said, "He's on our side." Silas Reed said, "Since when?" The tech hands over a key fob and says, "Vault relay is this way." But his hand trembles. A screen flickers with a login that autofills itself. The narrator tastes the edge of ozone and doubt. The door unlocks too easily, and somewhere a camera blinks away. The lab door seals, and the world narrows to voices and soft fans. The narrator watches Evelyn Hart lean close to Noah Clark as cables snake across the floor. Noah said, "I was wrong to hide the substation logs." Evelyn said, "You were scared." His laugh is small and honest, or it tries hard to be. Priya Shah said, "Fear is fine until it sells us out." The hum smooths like a hand over water. Noah said, "I will take the risk this time." He reaches for her laptop and pauses a breath too long. Silas Reed said, "Decide faster." A relay map loads, neat and bright, showing a path like a promise. Evelyn said, "We follow this, we end him." Noah smiles, soft at the edges, and the narrator feels the smile hold something back. Marble returns, and with it Dr. Marcus Vale, composed at the end of the atrium like a mirror cut from ice. The narrator senses the room lean toward him, the air trained to obey. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "You collect truth, the way others collect blame." Evelyn Hart said, "Truth does not need permission." Vale said, "But it requires care." His words arrive smooth, like gloves over wires. Priya Shah said, "Care is not consent." Vale glances at Noah Clark, and the glance lands like a claim. Noah said, "He can end this without blood." Evelyn said, "He will only bury it deeper." Vale said, "You fear control. I fear chaos." The line divides them clean, and the narrator feels doubt twist like a slow knife. The turn arrives quiet. The narrator watches Noah Clark reach for the laptop and slip the red drive free. Evelyn Hart said, "What are you doing?" Noah said, "Keeping you alive." Priya Shah said, "You promised." His eyes apologized before his hands finished the theft. Silas Reed said, "Don't," and moves too late. The doors crack open to men who do not belong to the school. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Thank you, Noah." The words are clean and final. Evelyn's breath breaks once, then Hart. Priya steps forward and stops at the look on Noah's face. A dull sting of shame fills the room. The men close and the drive leaves her hand like a piece of bone. Silence lands after the car doors thud shut, heavy as wet cloth. The narrator follows Evelyn Hart as she stares at the empty space where the drive lived. Priya Shah said, "He chose the easy door." Evelyn said, "He chose a leash." The atrium clock ticks loud enough to bruise. Dr. Marcus Vale is gone, but the room still carries his shape. Silas Reed said, "I can fix part of this," and the words sound thin. Evelyn lets the lost bite once, then breathes it into iron. She said, "We take the vault, with or without him." Priya nods through tears that refuse to fall. The plan rewires itself on the fly. The narrator hears the hum gather like a storm that knows their names. The atrium rests in a hush that feels borrowed, as if the night forgot to breathe. The narrator watches dust drift through the skylight like slow ash. Evelyn Hart said, "He planned it," and the words hang like a cracked bell. Priya Shah said, "We missed the smaller signs," and her voice carries a soft bruise. Silas Reed said, "I saw what I wanted and called it duty." The clock ticks, and each tick is a small apology to time. Footprints dry on the marble, breaking at the door where Noah Clark turned away. The air smells of wet stone and old paper, clean and empty. Evelyn kneels, fingers on a scuff that points toward the auditorium wing. She said, "Elena marked a path, and we were late to read it." The realization turns the silence into a map. The auditorium wing smells like copper and dust, and a switch clicks in memory. The narrator feels time fold as Evelyn Hart opens the vault corridor door. Past and present line up like two panes of glass. Elena Ward said on a warped tape, "If fear has a pitch, it can be tuned." Evelyn said, "You trusted me to hear this when I could bear it." The hum returns, low and careful, and the concrete vibrates like a quiet throat. Priya Shah said, "He sold control as protection." Silas Reed said, "I stamped approvals because the forms looked clean." A reel clicks and the tone steps up a half note that tastes like panic. The truth slides into place. The array taught bodies to obey. They find Dr. Marcus Vale waiting by the stage door, framed by velvet and shadow. The narrator counts each breath like a metronome that knows the end of a song. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "You brought courage and forgot context." Evelyn Hart said, "Context was the cage. He studies her silence the way surgeons study pulse." Priya Shah said, "You tuned fear into a lesson plan." Vale said, "I tuned panic into order." The gap between their words widens and hums. Silas Reed shifts. The floor answers with a tired groan. Evelyn steps closer, and her heartbeat seems to steady the room. She said, "Who wrote the first test?" Vale said nothing, and the nothing lands harder than a scream. The narrator hears the tone settle as Dr. Marcus Vale steps into the spill of a ghost light. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Fear kills more than it saves, unless it is taught to kneel." Evelyn Hart said, "You made people bend to a pitch." He said, "I spared them chaos." Priya Shah said, "You spared yourself doubt." He smiles without warmth, and the room answers by leaning his way. Silas Reed said, "I carried that weight for you." Vale said, "You carried safety." The words blur edges between harm and care, and the stage feels like a courtroom with no jury. Evelyn looks at her hands and sees the work they will do. She said, "The enemy is a system that sounds like mercy." Silence returns, thinner now, but clean. The narrator feels the room widen as Evelyn Hart lets the truth settle in her bones. Priya Shah said, "So this was the truth all along." Evelyn said, "He taught fear to carry a badge." The words fall soft, but they do not break. Silas Reed said, "I will testify." The ghost light hums and the stage dust glows like ash turned to snow. Evelyn sets the recorder on the floor, steady as a promise. He said, "We take it public, and we do not look back." The path ahead is sharp, but it is hers. The night holds open the door that leads to the fight. The stage door vibrates before the handle turns, and the ghost light hums like a fuse. The narrator hears boots stack in the hall, breath tight as wire. Evelyn Hart said, "He's coming," and her pulse steadies the room. Priya Shah said, "Stream is live," and her thumb hovers over send. The exit sign flickers, 3 beats, then 2, like a code from the dark. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Open the vault," and his voice slides under the door. Silas Reed said, "On me," and plants beside the frame, jaw set. The air smells like hot dust and rain-soaked cloth. Evelyn said, "Tonight ends the tuning." The latch clicks once, then again, and the door begins to open. The door yawns, and the room snaps from silence to blade. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Fear disciplined is mercy." Evelyn Hart said, "Fear aimed is a weapon." Priya Shah said, "People are not switches." He steps forward, calm as steel in rain. Silas Reed said, "Back off," and his hand lifts but does not shake. Vale said, "You confuse control with cruelty." Evelyn said, "You confuse harm with order." Their words cut fast like short lights in a storm. The hum rises as if the building chooses sides. Noah Clark appears at the far wing, eyes lowered. The first shove lands with a thud, and the fight begins. Noise fractures, then thins, and the narrator feels time grab at the edges. A plainclothes rush breaks left, and Priya Shah said, "Evelyn down." Evelyn Hart drops slides, and the mic skitters away. Dr. Marcus Vale lifts a hand, calm as a judge. Silas Reed steps into a blow meant for her and grunts once. The world narrows to breath, and the metronome hum. Priya said, "Stay with me," and her voice breaks but holds. Silas said, "Make it count," and the words are small and heavy. Evelyn presses her forehead to his for a heartbeat. The siren outside fades into a long, empty line. The cost settles like ash. Evelyn Hart stands, and the room aligns behind her. Dr. Marcus Vale said, "Stand down," she said. "Stand here." The ghost light burns like a small sun against a cold sea. Priya Shah routes the archive to every open channel. The hum swells until breath finds a rhythm inside it. Vale moves to kill the stream. Evelyn steps through his reach. Their shoulders collide, sharp as glass. He said, "I built order." She said, "You built a cage that sang." Thunder answers the roof with dry heat. The recorder blinks red, steady as a heartbeat. Evelyn slams the master fader up, and the truth floods the hall. The hall exhales, and the hum gentles into air. The narrator watches dust drift in calm arcs as sirens recede outside. Evelyn Hart stands in the glow, face streaked with rain and grit. Priya Shah said he heard it all, and her breath steadies with the words. Silas Reed says nothing, but his nod seals a promise. The stream counter rolls past numbers that feel like dawn. Evelyn said, "We ended the song that hurt people," and the line lands soft and true. The ghost light dims just a shade. The night grows wider around them, and a door far upstage clicks open to tomorrow. The storm fades, leaving only a hushed stillness that fills the empty auditorium like dust settling. The narrator feels the weight of silence, the deep space between breaths. Evelyn Hart said, "It's done," and the words hang without echo. Priya Shah said, "It cost us," and her eyes don't leave the wreckage. The light from the exit sign flickers weakly, casting long shadows over the stage. The floor, littered with discarded cables and broken equipment, holds no more secrets. Evelyn said, "We lost them all," and the weight of truth presses her shoulders down. In the far corner, the recorder still glows red. The price is clear, but the cost of peace feels heavier than they expected. A door opens quietly, and the world outside is waiting to be rebuilt. The world moves at a different pace now, and the quiet echoes louder than any noise. The narrator feels the space Evelyn Hart occupies, a void filled with the weight of unsaid things. She said, "I could have stopped it." Priya Shah said, "None of us could have." The words are quiet, almost apologetic, but Evelyn still feels the blame linger like smoke in a forgotten room. She remembers the faces of those who trusted them. Elena, Lena, even Vale in his own twisted way. Priya whispers, "We did what we had to do." The realization settles that life is not fixed. It changes, and they must move with. Evelyn looks out to the still night beyond the door. Life, despite everything, will continue. But it will never be the same. The door creaks open, and there stands Silas Reed, bruised but alive, the weight of his sacrifice visible in his movements. The narrator watches as his slow steps bring him back into the fold. Evelyn Hart said, "You should be resting." Silas said, "You needed me here." The words feel like a release, something unspoken finally finding its place. Priya Shah said, "You'll need time to heal." He smiles faintly, and for the first time, there is no hesitation in his eyes. Evelyn said, "We all do." The silence stretches between them, but it is comfortable now. There is peace in knowing that despite everything, they are not alone. The walls of the auditorium feel like they are holding their breath as Evelyn Hart watches the old projector spool its last frame. The flicker of the light reflects in her eyes, a memory of lessons learned. Priya Shah said, "We will rebuild it our way." Evelyn said, "Our way is different now." The room, empty but for their silhouettes, seems full of ghosts from the past, but it is a soft, gentle haunting. The sound of the reel winding down echoes in her chest. She smiles faintly, as if the years of struggle have finally carved a place for her to rest. The clock ticks softly in the corner, as if waiting to start anew. The room, once cold, now feels like home. The night stretches out into the horizon, and Evelyn Hart steps out into the street, the city quiet behind her. Priya Shah walks beside her, both shoulders slightly less burdened. Evelyn said, "We rebuild, piece by piece." Priya said, "And we remember." The rain has stopped, and the first stars begin to show. The weight of loss is still with them, but it has a different shape now, softer, as if it has become part of them. Evelyn looks up at the sky, and for the first time, she feels the promise of tomorrow. The world outside is as it always was, but they are not the same. A new chapter is already beginning. The air is still, the storm now only a distant memory. The silence in the room feels too heavy, as if the world is holding its breath. Evelyn Hart stands at the stage's edge, her hand tracing the worn surface of the desk. The soft hum of the city beyond is the only sound. She said, "What's left after it all?" Priya Shah stands beside her, quiet. The rain from earlier still lingers in the air, cool and fresh. Silas Reed has gone, but the weight of his presence remains in the room. Time feels elastic, bending around them. Evelyn said, "Some things break us so we can rebuild." Her voice, soft yet grounded, is a whisper that seems to echo in the quiet space. Priya simply nods, and the question hangs unanswered. Was it worth it? The night has faded into early morning, and the street outside beckons. The world beyond the auditorium feels almost unrecognizable, as if they're stepping into someone else's life. Evelyn Hart turns away from the door, her feet slow on the marble. Priya Shah follows, the silence now comfortable between them. Evelyn said, "We can't undo what's been done," Priya said. "But we can choose how to move forward." Their steps are in sync, heavy with the weight of what they've seen and lost. The world they knew has become something new. The building behind them, once full of secrets and lies, is now just a place. Evelyn's hand brushes the doorframe one last time. It's time to leave. Time to move on. The night hums with the stillness of things left unsaid. A voice echoes faintly, carried by the wind. The truth doesn't vanish just because we walk away from it. The narrator watches as Evelyn pulls a small recorder from her pocket, the one that once carried Elena's voice. She presses play, and the faint crackle fills the air. Elena's voice, soft and vulnerable, says, "If fear can be controlled, then so can we." The tape ends. Evelyn stares at the recorder, her fingers trembling slightly. Priya said, "Her message will last, no matter what happens." The sound lingers, a reminder of a life changed, a story that will never be fully forgotten. The world moves on. People pass by, unaware of what has been lost and found. Evelyn Hart steps into the street, the morning sun beginning to break the chill of night. The city feels new, and with it, the promise of change. Priya Shah looks at Evelyn, a silent question in her eyes. Evelyn nods, and they continue walking. There are new faces ahead, new rhythms to discover. The past doesn't disappear, but it fades into the background. The weight they carry is lighter now, but it still rests with them. There is peace in that, and in knowing that tomorrow will ask new questions, but it will also offer new answers. The journey ends not with a bang, but with a whisper. Evelyn Hart stands still, her eyes on the horizon, the world moving around her. She said, "We find peace in the quiet after the storm." The city hums beneath her feet, a constant pulse of life. The narrator feels the weight of everything she's endured in that simple line. The story doesn't end in victory or defeat. It ends in acceptance. The road ahead is uncertain, but the steps are hers to take. Truth must never be owned. It must be lived, quietly and truthful.